Spooktober's here, and with every dusk, eerie instance unveils a new tale. 31 days, 31 stories. Hit subscribe and journey into the unknown with us. The moment I stepped into the Ravensbrück Museum, an icy chill gripped me, a sensation that couldn't be attributed to any air conditioning. The grand hall was abuzz with townsfolk, their faces lit with excitement and curiosity. But amidst the chatter and anticipation, I felt an oppressive weight in the air, a heaviness that seemed to emanate from the draped exhibit at the center of the room. The museum director, Mr. Hargrove, a stout man with a penchant for dramatics, took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice echoing through the hall. "Today, we unveil a relic that has been shrouded in mystery and legend." With a flourish, he pulled away the drapes, revealing the centerpiece of the exhibit, the Black Mummy. A collective gasp filled the room. The mummy, wrapped in dark, almost obsidian-like bandages, exuded an aura of malevolence. Its face, though hidden, seemed to be watching, waiting. Whispers filled the air, not just from the crowd, but also, it seemed, from the very walls of the museum. I shook my head, trying to dispel the eerie feeling. As the crowd pressed forward to get a closer look, I noticed a young boy, no older than 10, breaking away from his parents. Drawn to the mummy like a moth to a flame, he slipped under the velvet rope that cordoned off the exhibit. The boy, Timmy, was known to me. He was the adventurous son of the local baker. Before anyone could react, he reached out, his fingers brushing the dark wrappings of the mummy. A shadow, swift and fleeting, passed over Timmy's face. His eyes, once filled with mischief, now looked hollow. He stepped back, a look of terror replacing his earlier curiosity. The room's temperature seemed to drop further, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the hall into momentary darkness. When they returned, Timmy was gone. His parents, panic evident in their eyes, began calling out for him, their voices joining a rising cacophony of confusion and fear. I pushed through the crowd, trying to find any trace of the boy. The museum, once a place of wonder, now felt like a labyrinth of shadows and echoes. The weight in the air grew heavier, and the whispers became almost deafening. It was as if the very soul of the museum had awakened, and it was hungry. The day's events took a dark turn. The unveiling, meant to be a celebration, had become a search mission. As the town rallied to find Timmy, I couldn't shake off the feeling that the Black Mummy, with its dark bandages and even darker legends, was at the heart of this mystery. Night fell quickly, casting long, sinister shadows across Ravensbrück. The once celebratory atmosphere was replaced by one of dread. The museum's doors were shut, but the windows seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. And as I stood outside, looking up at the grand old building, I knew that the legends were true, and that Ravensbrück was now in the grip of a curse that threatened to consume us all. The rumors about Ravensbrück's dark history had always been whispered in hushed tones, but I never paid them much heed. That was until the museum's latest exhibit and Timmy's inexplicable disappearance. The town was abuzz with speculations, and I felt a growing unease. I needed answers. That night, I decided to sneak into the museum. The grand clock in the town square struck midnight as I approached the entrance. Using a set of old keys I had found in my family's attic, I managed to unlock the main door. The cold, stale air of the museum greeted me, and I felt the weight of countless eyes upon me. But it wasn't the artifacts watching, it was the shadows. Guided only by the dim light of my flashlight, I navigated the maze-like corridors of the museum. The whispers grew louder with every step, guiding me towards the Egyptian exhibit. There, in the center of the room, stood the Black Mummy's sarcophagus, even more menacing in the dark. Beside the sarcophagus, I noticed a pedestal with an old, dusty book. It seemed out of place amidst the meticulously curated artifacts. I carefully opened it, revealing handwritten pages. The journal detailed the history of the Black Mummy and spoke of a curse that would befall any town that dared to display it. My heart raced as I read about a ritual to banish the curse. It required specific artifacts and had to be performed under the moonlight. As I was engrossed in the journal, a sudden gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing my flashlight. Panic surged through me. I fumbled to turn it back on, but when the beam of light pierced the darkness again, the sarcophagus was open and the mummy was gone. I heard soft footsteps behind me. Turning around, I saw a shadowy figure, its form barely discernible. "You shouldn't be here," it whispered, its voice echoing through the vast hall. I recognized the voice. It was Timmy's. "Timmy, is that you?" I asked, my voice trembling. The shadow didn't respond, but pointed towards the exit. I didn't need any more prompting. I ran, the whispers growing louder, urging me to leave. I burst out of the museum, gasping for breath. The moonlight bathed Ravensbrück in a silvery glow, but the town felt different, more sinister. The journal's pages rustled in the wind, and I clutched it tightly, realizing it might be the only way to save Timmy and Ravensbrück. I knew what I had to do. The ritual had to be performed, and I was the only one who could do it. But first, I needed to gather the artifacts mentioned in the journal. The weight of responsibility bore down on me, but there was no turning back. Ravensbrück's fate rested in my hands. A few days had passed when, at the stroke of midnight, the familiar chimes resonated through the desolate streets of Ravensbrück. Standing at the museum's entrance, I clutched the ancient scroll detailing the ritual. The wind howled, its gusts filled with whispers from days gone by, and the immense weight of the town's fate pressed heavily upon me. As I began reciting the incantations, the museum's walls seemed to pulse with energy. The shadows grew darker, more pronounced, and I could feel the presence of the shadowy figures growing stronger. Their whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices trying to drown out my own. Outside, the townsfolk, drawn by an inexplicable force, began to gather. They formed a vast circle around the museum, their faces pale, eyes vacant. It was as if the very soul of Ravensbrück was being summoned to this spot. The Black Mummy, the epicenter of all this chaos, began to resonate with my chants. Its once lifeless form now seemed to twitch and stir. I could feel its power, its anger, its thirst for retribution. But I pressed on, determined to finish the ritual and save Timmy. Suddenly, a force yanked me backward. I stumbled, my concentration broken. The scroll slipped from my grasp, fluttering away. The mummy's sarcophagus cracked open, and a dark, ethereal mist poured out, enveloping the room. From within the mist, a voice, ancient and malevolent, echoed, "The boy is mine." I tried to resume the ritual, to shout above the chaos, but it was too late. The shadowy figures converged, their forms becoming more tangible, their whispers now deafening screams. The mummy, reanimated, stepped out of its sarcophagus, its eyes fixated on me. The townsfolk, still in their trance, began to chant in unison, their voices merging with the shadowy figures. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, the energy palpable. In a desperate attempt, I lunged for the scroll, managing to grasp it. With all the strength I could muster, I shouted the final incantation. A blinding light filled the room, and for a moment, everything went silent. When the light faded, the museum was in ruins. The Black Mummy's sarcophagus lay empty, the shadowy figures gone. The townsfolk, no longer entranced, looked around in confusion, the events of the night a hazy memory. But Timmy was nowhere to be found. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The mummy had claimed its victim. I had failed. The sun began to rise, casting a somber light over Ravensbrook. But the darkness of that night would forever linger, a constant reminder of the price of curiosity and the power of ancient curses.